The city was dead before the bodies even hit the ground. Hannah's breath came fast and shallow as she pressed her back against the convenience store's blood-smeared counter, fingers clenched around a rusted fire axe. Outside, the streets burned, cars overturned, store windows shattered, bodies littering the sidewalks. The sound of distant sirens faded into the night, drowned out by the inhuman moans that filled the air. "Move, now!" Cody hissed, tugging at her arm. His eyes flicked toward the entrance, where the glass door barely hung on its hinges. The horde was closing in. Their small group, 5 survivors clinging to whatever hope was left, had been running since sundown. The infection had spread like wildfire, tearing through the city in less than 72 hours. No warning. No evacuation. Just madness. Hannah nodded, steeling herself. She glanced at the others, Jace, a former cop with a bloodied shotgun slung over his shoulder, Olivia, a college student still wearing her campus hoodie, clutching a crowbar like a lifeline, and Marcus, a lanky, quiet man who had barely spoken since they met him. They had to keep moving. Jace took point, his boots crunching over shattered glass as he stepped toward the exit. He held up a hand, signaling for silence. The street outside was littered with corpses, but Hannah knew better than to assume they were dead. Then, a sound, soft but unmistakable. A wet, guttural snarl from somewhere behind the overturned shelves. Hannah's stomach twisted. Before she could react, the thing lurched out. A man, or what was left of him, stumbled forward. His throat was torn open, his shirt stained dark with dried blood, and his eyes were clouded over with that soulless, vacant stare. Jace raised his shotgun. BLAM. The thing's head snapped back, spraying the shelves behind it with gore. For a second, silence. Then, the chorus of moans swelled from the street. "Shit," Cody muttered. They heard that. More figures emerged in the dim glow of the streetlights, dragging their ruined bodies toward the noise. Some crawled on broken limbs, others staggered forward with that nightmarish, unnatural gait. "We have to go," Olivia cried. The group burst into motion. Hannah sprinted after Jace, her boots pounding against the asphalt as they dodged the grasping hands reaching for them. The air stank of rot and smoke. They turned the corner onto an alleyway, only to skid to a stop. Dead end. "Are you kidding me?" Cody growled, spinning around. The moans behind them grew louder. Hannah's mind raced. No way out. No doors. No ladders. Just brick walls on either side and the undead closing in. Jace reloaded his shotgun. "We fight." "No," Hannah said, gripping her axe tighter. "We climb." She pointed at a rusted fire escape halfway up the building's side. It wasn't ideal, but it was their only shot. Marcus, usually silent, muttered, "They're getting closer." Jace was the first to move, jumping onto a dumpster to give himself a boost. He grabbed onto the lowest rung of the fire escape and hauled himself up, tossing his shotgun onto the metal landing. "Come on." Olivia went next, Cody right behind her. Marcus hesitated, eyes darting to the incoming horde. "Marcus!" Hannah shouted. But he wasn't moving. "Go," he said, voice barely above a whisper. Before Hannah could protest, he turned, sprinting straight at the infected. She choked on a gasp as she saw what he was doing. Marcus crashed into the horde, using his body as a shield, drawing them away from the alley. "No!" Cody grabbed her arm. "We can't help him." She wanted to fight, wanted to run after Marcus, but she knew he was already gone. She forced herself to move, scrambling onto the fire escape just as the infected overwhelmed the alley. From above, she saw Marcus disappear beneath a tide of snapping teeth and clawing hands. Tears burned at the corners of her eyes, but she bit them back. They climbed higher, reaching the rooftop as the screams below faded into the night. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Jace broke the silence. "We need a plan. Because this city? It's not ours anymore. And as Hannah looked out over the skyline, fires burning, the undead swarming below, she knew he was right. The rooftop gave them a temporary reprieve, but Hannah knew it wouldn't last. She crouched at the edge, gripping the cold metal railing as she peered down at the street below. Fires flickered in the distance, casting eerie shadows over the sea of undead. Marcus was gone, his sacrifice still fresh in her mind. She clenched her jaw. They couldn't afford to lose anyone else. Jace exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand down his face. We can't stay up here. Supplies won't last, and we need a real plan. Cody slumped against an old air vent, running a hand through his disheveled blonde hair. What do you suggest? Because every time we try to hole up somewhere, we either run out of food or get eaten. Hannah glanced at Olivia, who hugged her knees to her chest, staring blankly at the skyline. The girl hadn't spoken since they'd climbed up here. Jace tapped the rooftop with his boot. We move. Get out of the downtown area and find somewhere less infested. Cody let out a bitter chuckle. Less infested? Have you seen this city? Jace ignored him. What about that police station we passed earlier? It's fortified. Maybe there are weapons. Supplies. Hannah hesitated. It was crawling with them last time we checked. But it's built to keep people out, Jace argued. Which means it can keep them out too. We just have to clear it first. No one spoke. The weight of the risk hung over them like a storm cloud. But what choice did they have? Finally, Olivia whispered, we can't stay here. That settled it. The streets were a death trap. Getting down was easier said than done. The fire escape ended in a narrow alley, eerily quiet but still dangerous. They moved fast, weapons ready, avoiding the main roads where the undead roamed in thick, hungry herds. Hannah gripped her axe, every step calculated. The city was a graveyard, but the dead weren't resting. They crossed through an abandoned diner, the glass door shattered, blood smeared across the black and white tiled floor. The stench of decay clung to the air. Stay quiet, Jace murmured, leading the way past overturned booths and forgotten meals left to rot. Cody peeked behind the counter, rummaging through drawers. Empty, he muttered. Figures. Olivia tugged at Hannah's sleeve. Look. She pointed toward the kitchen door, where a fresh corpse lay slumped against the frame. A bullet hole in the skull. Not a zombie. A survivor. Cody exhaled. Someone else was here. And recently, Jace added, kneeling to inspect the body. This wasn't long ago. Whoever did this might still be close. Hannah swallowed hard. Another threat. As if the undead weren't enough. A noise, faint but distinct. A shuffle from the back of the diner. Jace stood, hand hovering over his shotgun. We're not alone. Hannah tightened her grip on her axe. Then the door burst open. The kitchen door slammed open, and a figure burst through, gun raised. Drop your weapons, the man barked, eyes wild with panic. He was lean, mid-30s, wearing a torn hoodie and cargo pants. A hunting rifle trembled in his hands. His knuckles were white from gripping it too hard. Hannah froze, her fingers tightening around her axe. Jace slowly raised his hands, though she noticed his shotgun was still slung over his shoulder, ready to be grabbed in a heartbeat. Cody and Olivia barely breathed. Whoa, easy, Jace said, his voice even. We don't want trouble. The man's gaze flicked between them. His finger twitched on the trigger. Bullshit. Everyone wants something. Hannah could see the desperation in his eyes. He was scared, more scared than they were. Jace kept his hands up. You alone? The man's lips pressed into a thin line. Attell. He wasn't alone. Listen, Jace continued, we're just passing through. Looking for supplies. If you... A voice interrupted from behind the stranger. Dave! Don't do this. A woman stepped out from the shadows, her expression tense. She was older than the man, mid-40s maybe, with streaks of gray in her dark hair. Unlike him, she didn't look ready to shoot first. "Dave, please," she repeated. "They're not like the others." Dave's grip on the rifle faltered for a second. Just a second. Jace didn't waste the opportunity. With lightning speed, he lunged forward, shoving the barrel of the rifle upward just as Dave pulled the trigger. Bang! The shot went wild, shattering a hanging light fixture. Chaos erupted. Hannah swung her axe up, ready to defend, but Dave was already struggling with Jace. The two men crashed into a stack of metal shelves, sending canned food tumbling to the floor. "Stop," the woman cried, but no one listened. Cody grabbed Olivia and pulled her back, shielding her. Jace and Dave fought for control of the rifle. Dave elbowed Jace in the ribs, but Jace recovered quickly, slamming the butt of his palm into Dave's jaw. The man staggered, dazed. "Enough!" Hannah shouted. Jace ripped the rifle from Dave's grasp and shoved him backward. Dave hit the ground, panting, his nose bleeding. The room fell into silence. The woman immediately crouched beside Dave, glaring up at them. "Are you happy now?" Jace exhaled sharply and tossed the rifle across the room, out of reach. "I don't like guns pointed at me." "Maybe don't do that next time." Hannah's heart was still racing. "Who are you?" The woman hesitated, then sighed. "I'm Mia. This is my brother, Dave. We were just trying to survive." "By robbing people?" Cody muttered. Mia shot him a sharp look. "You think we had a choice?" Hannah looked around the diner. The empty shelves, the fresh corpse at the back. They had been running low on food, too. Desperation made people dangerous. "We don't have to be enemies," Mia said, standing slowly. "We can help each other." Jace wiped the blood from his lip. "And why should we trust you after that?" Mia looked at Dave, who was still breathing heavily, and then back at Jace. "Because if you don't, none of us are getting out of this city alive." Hannah exchanged glances with the others. Trust was a dangerous thing. But was being alone any safer? Outside, the undead moaned hungrily in the distance. Time was running out. Silence settled over the diner, thick with unspoken tension. The only sounds were the occasional distant moans outside and the slow, uneven breathing of Dave, still nursing his busted lip. Jace wiped his hands on his jeans, still watching Dave warily. "If we're doing this, we need to know what you bring to the table." Mia didn't hesitate. "We know a way out of the city." That got everyone's attention. Hannah straightened. "You do?" Mia nodded. "We were part of a bigger group, holed up in a warehouse near the docks. Some of us scouted for supplies while the rest fortified the place. Before things fell apart, we found maps, underground routes, old stone drains, ways to get past the worst of it." Cody scoffed. "And yet, you're stuck in a diner?" Mia's expression darkened. "Our group didn't make it. We got separated when the herd moved in." She swallowed hard. "We tried to get back, but we've been running ever since." Hannah's stomach twisted. She knew what "didn't make it" meant. Jace sighed. "All right. Let's say we believe you. What's the plan?" Mia took a deep breath. "We need to get back to the warehouse. If it's still standing, there's food, ammo, and the tunnel maps. If it's gone..." She trailed off, shaking her head. "Then we find another way." Jace folded his arms. "How far?" 7 blocks, Dave muttered, still rubbing his jaw. "But it might as well be 7 miles with those things out there." Hannah glanced at the boarded-up windows. They hadn't seen too many infected on the way here, but the city was never truly empty. "We need to move before nightfall," Olivia said quietly. It was the first thing she had spoken since they left the rooftop. Mia nodded. "Agreed." Jace adjusted his shotgun. "Then we move now." The streets were no longer theirs. The city loomed like a graveyard as they moved. Cars sat abandoned at odd angles, their doors left open, belongings scattered across the pavement. Blood painted the sidewalks in dark streaks, but the bodies had already been picked clean, whether by time or by the undead, no one wanted to think about. Jace led, moving low and fast, keeping his shotgun close. Mia and Dave followed, whispering directions when needed. Cody kept an eye on Olivia, and Hannah stayed near the rear, gripping her axe so tightly her fingers ached. For the first 2 blocks, they encountered nothing but silence. Then the moaning started. At first, it was distant. A low, dreadful sound that rumbled through the empty streets. But then came the shuffling, a chorus of dragging feet on concrete. They turned a corner and stopped cold. The herd was massive. Dozens, maybe more, of the undead filled the intersection ahead. Rotting bodies swayed as they moved sluggishly between the wreckage of the city. Some were fresh, barely decomposed. Others were skeletal, their skin clinging in torn, leathery patches. One thing was clear, the direct route was suicide. "Shit," Cody whispered. Jace scanned their surroundings. Alleyway. Now. They darted into a narrow passage between 2 crumbling buildings. Trash was piled against the walls, the smell of rot thick in the air. They moved quickly, weaving between debris, until they reached a side street. Hannah exhaled in relief, until she heard the distant crash of metal. The noise echoed like a gunshot. Then came the wave of moans. They were coming. Mia cursed. They heard that. "We gotta go," Dave said, voice rising with panic. "We gotta go now." Jace took the lead again, forcing them into a sprint. The dead weren't fast, but they were relentless, drawn like a tide toward any sign of life. The streets blurred as they ran, vaulting over wreckage and dodging overturned dumpsters. Hannah's lungs burned, her axe feeling heavier with every step. Then she saw it, the warehouse. A tall, looming structure just at the end of the block, its exterior covered in faded graffiti. The metal doors were slightly ajar. "We're almost there," Mia shouted. But the moans grew louder. The horde was closing in. They wouldn't make it in time. "Go!" Jace barked. "I'll hold them off." Hannah skidded to a stop. "No way in hell." "I said go." Jace shoved her forward and turned, raising his shotgun. He fired. Boom! A walker's head exploded in a mist of gore. The blast only made the others move faster. Cody grabbed Hannah's arm. "We have to move." Heart pounding, she ran. They reached the warehouse just as Jace fired again. Mia and Dave pushed the doors open, revealing the darkened interior. "Hurry!" Olivia cried. Jace was still outside, backpedaling as the horde closed in. He had only a few shells left. Then, his gun clicked empty. A walker lunged. Jace swung his shotgun like a club, cracking it against the creature's skull. But there were too many. Hannah acted without thinking. She turned and ran back outside. Swinging her axe with all her strength, she buried it in the skull of a nearby walker, yanking Jace free from its grasp. "Move," she shouted. Jace didn't argue. Together, they bolted back toward the warehouse. Mia and Cody were already pulling the doors shut as they dived inside. The second they cleared the threshold, the heavy doors slammed closed with a deafening clang. The moans rumbled from the other side, but the doors held. For now. Panting, Hannah collapsed against a crate, her heart hammering in her chest. Jace let out a breathless laugh. "Remind me to never argue with you again." Hannah smirked, though exhaustion weighed on her limbs. "Damn right." Cody peered at the entrance. "Let's hope this place is worth the trouble." Mia turned toward the dark interior. Only one way to find out. They weren't safe yet. And the worst was still coming. Silence settled over the warehouse, broken only by the ragged breathing of the group. The heavy metal doors trembled under the weight of the dead outside, their moans leaking through the cracks like whispers from hell. Hannah wiped sweat from her brow, still gripping her axe. The run had drained her, but the fight wasn't over. Mia stepped forward, her eyes scanning the dark interior. We need to check if this place is secure. If those things get in. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Jace nodded, his face grim. We'll sweep the building. Stay alert. The warehouse was vast, its high ceilings disappearing into shadow. Rusting metal shelves lined the walls, some still stocked with forgotten crates. Dust coated the air, disturbed only by their footsteps. Olivia clung to Cody's arm, her eyes darting nervously. It's too quiet. Dave scoffed. Would you rather it be loud? Hannah shot him a glare. Shut up, Dave. They moved cautiously, weapons raised, peering into every corner, every darkened space where the undead could be lurking. Then they found them. 2 bodies. Slumped against the far wall, their clothes tattered, their flesh gray and sunken. A man and a woman, their faces frozen in expressions of pain. A blood-stained knife rested between them. Mia inhaled sharply. I knew them. She crouched beside the bodies, pressing her lips together. They were with us before we got separated. James and Lila. Hannah swallowed. Looks like they. She trailed off, but the meaning was clear. The 2 had gone out together, rather than turning into monsters. Cody shook his head. This world is messed up. Jace turned away. Come on. Let's see if there's anything useful here. They spread out, searching the shelves and crates. Cody found a half-empty water bottle. Olivia grabbed some canned goods, beans, corn, a dented can of fruit. Then Hannah struck gold. A map. It was pinned to the wall near an old work desk, yellowed and worn but still legible. She traced a finger over the markings, tunnels, escape routes, underground passages that cut through the city. This is it, she whispered. Mia, you weren't lying. This could get us out. Mia sighed, relieved. Told you. Jace leaned over her shoulder. The storm drain system. It connects to the outskirts. If we can get to one of these access points, we might actually make it. For the first time in days, there was hope. Then, a crash. A metal container toppled from a shelf across the warehouse. Everyone froze. Hannah turned slowly, axe ready. Something moved in the shadows. Then the snarl came. And suddenly, they weren't alone. The warehouse wasn't empty. From the far side of the warehouse, a figure emerged. A walker. Its flesh was rotted beyond recognition, its jaw hanging loosely, exposing yellow teeth. It stumbled forward, drawn by the noise. Then another shape appeared. And another. And another. 5. No more. Hannah's pulse skyrocketed. Shit. Jace raised his shotgun. We must have locked some inside when we came in. Or they were here first, Mia whispered. The dead shuffled toward them, slow but relentless. Their moans grew louder, echoing off the warehouse walls. Dave took a step back. We need to get the hell out of here. Jace cursed under his breath. We hold our ground. Bottleneck them. Take them out one by one. Cody groaned. I hate this plan. A walker lunged. Boom. Jace's shotgun blast ripped through its skull, sending it crumpling to the floor. Hannah swung her axe, cleaving into another's neck. The body collapsed, twitching. Mia stabbed one in the eye with her knife, pushing it back as it snarled. They fought hard, every second feeling like an eternity. Blood splattered, mixing with dust. Then, a new sound joined the chaos. A metallic groan. The warehouse doors. Outside, the horde was pushing harder. The doors buckled. Dave's voice was pure panic. They're coming through. Hannah's chest tightened. If those doors gave way, they were dead. Jace fired again. We need an exit, now. Mia grabbed the map, scanning it frantically. There's a maintenance hatch in the back. Go! Jace yelled. They ran. Ducking and weaving through the shelves, they sprinted toward the back of the warehouse. The moans outside grew deafening. The doors screeched, metal bending under the weight of countless bodies. Hannah saw it, the hatch. A rusted metal door, half hidden behind a stack of crates. She grabbed the handle and yanked. Locked. Cody cursed. You've got to be kidding me. Jace took one look at the failing doors, then at the hatch. Move. He raised his shotgun and fired. Boom. The lock shattered. Mia kicked the door open, revealing a dark tunnel below. The stone drain, she gasped. This is it. Hannah didn't think. She grabbed Olivia and jumped in. One by one, they climbed down. As Jace slid into the tunnel, the warehouse doors finally gave in. The last thing Hannah saw before the hatch slammed shut was the flood of undead pouring inside. The hatch slammed shut above them, sealing them in total darkness. The only sounds were their ragged breathing and the distant, muffled roars of the undead swarming the warehouse above. The metal groaned under the sheer force of bodies pressing against it. If they had been even a few seconds slower, Hannah shuddered. They'd be dead. A flicker of light cut through the darkness as Mia clicked on a flashlight. The narrow beam revealed a damp, crumbling tunnel stretching ahead, old stone drains, long abandoned. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and rot. Puddles of stagnant water covered the floor, rippling as they stepped in. Great, Cody muttered. From one nightmare into another. Jace exhaled sharply, gripping his shotgun. Could be worse. We could be up there. Hannah took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. No choice but forward. Mia traced a finger over the map. If I'm reading this right, this tunnel leads to a service station near the outskirts of the city. If we can get there, we're free. Dave scoffed. Big if. We don't know what's down here. Jace eyed him. And up there, we do know, thousands of infected. Pick your poison. Dave fell silent. Olivia clung to Cody's sleeve, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't like this place. Neither did Hannah. Something felt wrong. But what choice did they have? Let's move, Jace ordered. They trudged forward, their footsteps echoing through the tunnels. Something was down here. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. It was hard to tell underground. The tunnel stretched endlessly, winding in eerie silence. The flashlight beam flickered over rusted pipes and water-stained walls, their surfaces coated in grime. Hannah's nerves buzzed. It was too quiet. No moans. No echoes of the city above. Just emptiness. And that was almost worse. Jace walked ahead, scanning every corner. Cody and Olivia whispered behind him. Dave muttered complaints under his breath. Mia studied the map, leading the way. Hannah gripped her axe, muscles tense. Then she heard it. A click. It was faint, just ahead. A sound like nails tapping against concrete. She froze. Stop, she whispered. The others turned, sensing the change in her posture. What? Jace asked. Hannah strained her ears. Click. 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 Her blood ran cold. Something's down here. The sound came again. Closer. Then, a skittering movement. Fast. Too fast. The flashlight's beam flickered wildly as Mia swept it around. The light caught a glimpse of something moving, just out of sight. A shape. Low to the ground. Crawling. And then, the screech. A horrific, guttural cry that sent shivers down their spines. Then it lunged. Not just walkers anymore. The thing wasn't human. Not anymore. It moved on all fours, its limbs long and twisted. Its skin was stretched tight over its bones, its mouth unnaturally wide, rows of jagged teeth glistening in the flashlight's beam. It was fast. Too fast. Run. Mia screamed. The thing charged, its claws scraping against the tunnel floor. Jace fired. Boom! The shotgun blast hit, but the thing didn't stop. It shrieked, body jerking from the impact, but it still kept coming. Hannah grabbed Olivia and yanked her back. They had to move. Cody swung a crowbar, catching the creature across the side of its head. It screeched, stumbling, but another shape appeared behind it. More of them. Go, go, go! Jace roared. They ran. The tunnel twisted and turned, their feet splashing through the ankle-deep water. The creatures pursued, their screeches bouncing off the walls. Where's the exit? Dave shouted. Mia checked the map as she sprinted. Just ahead, if the tunnel's still intact. Hannah's heart slammed against her ribs. That was a big if. The tunnel narrowed, the walls tightening around them. A rusted ladder came into view, leading up to a grate. The service station. Mia gasped. But the creatures were right behind them. Hannah didn't hesitate. She grabbed Olivia and shoved her toward the ladder. Climb. Cody went next, then Mia, scrambling upward. Jace turned, firing again. Another direct hit, this time, the creature collapsed. But the others didn't stop. Dave was next up the ladder. Jace followed, firing blindly to slow the creatures down. Then Hannah moved. Too late. One of the creatures snagged her ankle. Yanked her back. She hit the water, gasping. Jace roared. Hannah. It pinned her. Teeth snapping inches from her face. Hannah struggled, pushing against its bony chest, but it was strong. Too strong. Jace jumped down. He swung his shotgun like a bat, cracking it across the creature's skull. It shrieked. Hannah kicked, breaking free. Jace hauled her up. Move! They scrambled up the ladder, the creatures clawing after them. Jace reached the top and slammed the grate shut just as one lunged, its claws scraping against the metal. Hannah collapsed, gasping for breath. Cody helped her up. That was way too close. Jace braced against the grate, listening. The creatures skittered below. Waiting. Then, slowly, their clicks and screeches faded into the dark. But Hannah knew. They weren't gone. They were just waiting. Jace exhaled, then looked around. They were in an abandoned gas station. Half collapsed, windows shattered, old shelves overturned. But outside. Fresh air. They were out of the city. For the first time in days, they had escaped. But the world beyond? That was another battle entirely. For a moment, they just stood there, gasping for breath. The gas station was eerily silent. Outside, the highway stretched into the unknown, cracked and overgrown. Abandoned cars littered the road, their doors hanging open, skeletons of a world long gone. They had escaped the city. But they weren't safe. Not yet. Jace reloaded his shotgun, his hands still shaking. Everyone okay? Hannah nodded, rubbing her bruised ankle. Yeah. Thanks to you. Mia checked Olivia, who was still trembling. We need to keep moving. Dave leaned against the counter, still catching his breath. Can't we just rest for a minute? Jace's jaw tightened. No. We don't know what's out here. Hannah looked at Mia. Where's the nearest safe zone? Mia unfolded the map, scanning it. If we follow the highway, there's a small town about 10 miles west. Could be supplies. Maybe people. Cody groaned. 10 miles? It's our best shot, Mia said. Jace nodded. Then we start walking. Hannah turned toward the shattered front windows, her stomach tightening. The world beyond the city looked dead. No movement. No life. And that terrified her. Something was wrong. Then, Olivia whispered, Guys, look. The aftermath of the end. They all turned. Through the broken glass, the horizon glowed red. Fires. The city they had barely escaped was burning. Smoke rose high into the sky, twisting like black tendrils. Even from miles away, they could hear the screams. Hannah swallowed hard. The undead had won. Dave shook his head. We were never getting out of there alive, were we? Chase's expression was grim. We did. But for how long? Cody muttered. Nobody had an answer. Then, a rustling noise came from the back of the station. Not the wind. Something else. Chase motioned for silence. He raised his shotgun, stepping toward the source. Hannah followed, gripping her axe. Then she saw it. A shadow moved behind the shelves. Someone, or something, was inside. Chase turned the corner, weapon raised. Show yourself. A shape darted past them. Hannah gasped, swinging her axe, but she missed. The figure crashed into a shelf, knocking over cans and supplies. A flashlight rolled across the floor, casting shaky beams of light over the figure's face. It was a man. Thin. Dirty. Wild-eyed. He raised shaking hands. Don't shoot. Chase lowered his shotgun slightly but didn't relax. Who are you? The man's chest heaved. Nathan. I was hiding. From what? Mia asked. Nathan's bloodshot eyes darted around as if expecting something to appear. Then he whispered, them. The new threat. Hannah's pulse quickened. You mean the undead? Nathan shook his head violently. No. Worse. The group exchanged uneasy glances. Talk, Chase demanded. Nathan swallowed hard. The infected aren't the only danger anymore. There's a group. They came through here days ago. Armed. Organized. They took what they wanted. Killed anyone who got in their way. Cody's face darkened. Raiders. Nathan nodded. They're still out there. Hunting survivors. A cold dread settled over them. Hannah knew what that meant. They weren't just running from the dead anymore. They were being hunted by the living. Chase exhaled sharply. We keep moving. Now. But, Dave started. Now. Hannah grabbed the supplies they could carry. Mia stuffed the map into her jacket. Then they ran. Back onto the highway. Into the unknown. And somewhere, in the distance, came the sound of gunfire. They weren't alone. The group ran. Their footsteps pounded against the cracked pavement, moving west along the abandoned highway. Each breath was sharp and ragged, each heartbeat a thunderous drum in their ears. The sun hung low in the sky, bathing the dead landscape in an eerie orange glow. Behind them, the gunfire had stopped. But that didn't mean they were safe. Chase took the lead, shotgun in hand, scanning the road ahead. Hannah ran beside Mia, gripping her axe so tightly her knuckles turned white. Nathan's words echoed in her mind. They're hunting survivors. Whoever they were, they had already killed before. They wouldn't hesitate to do it again. No place to hide. The highway stretched on endlessly, flanked by rusting cars and skeletal trees. A wrecked semi-truck lay overturned on the roadside, its cargo long looted. Mia checked the map as she jogged. Town still a few miles away. Dave groaned. We won't make it before dark. Then we move faster, Jace said. But Cody shook his head. No, Jace. We need to get off this road. Jace turned. Why? Because if we were tracking survivors, where would we look? Hannah's stomach dropped. The highway. Wide open. No cover. A perfect hunting ground. Chase cursed under his breath. All right. Off the road. Now. They scrambled down the embankment, moving into the dry, overgrown field that stretched beyond the highway. The grass was high, brushing against their arms as they pushed through. Ahead, they spotted an abandoned farmhouse sitting at the edge of a dead cornfield. Its windows were shattered, the paint peeling off the wooden boards. It wasn't much. But it was shelter. Jace motioned toward it. We hole up there until nightfall. Then we move under the cover of darkness. No one argued. The silent farmhouse. The front door hung open, swinging slightly in the evening breeze. Jace raised a shotgun as he stepped inside. The others followed cautiously. The farmhouse was still. Dust covered the furniture. A broken clock sat on the wall, frozen at 3:17. The kitchen table was set with plates, long since abandoned. It was like the world had ended mid-sentence. Cody moved to the window, peering out. No movement. Hannah checked the kitchen. The cabinets had been ransacked, food supplies stripped bare. Nathan hovered near the door, shaking. This place isn't safe. Jace turned to him. We don't have a choice. We'll keep watching shifts. Mia nodded. I'll take first watch. Jace nodded and stepped toward the stairs. I'll check upstairs. Click. The sound was quiet. But deadly. Jace froze. Hannah's breath caught. She recognized that sound. A tripwire. Jace, don't move. Mia whispered. Jace's face paled as his eyes flickered downward. Thin wire. Strung across the floor. Leading to a grenade. Cody cursed. That's a damn booby trap. Jace exhaled slowly, his entire body locked in place. All right, nobody panic. Dave panicked. He took a step back, knocking over a chair. The sound crashed through the silence. And from outside. A shout. Then another. They weren't alone. The hunters arrive. Mia killed the lantern just as the first figures appeared outside. 5 of them. Silhouettes against the dying sunlight. Armed. Raiders. Hannah's pulse thundered in her ears. We've got company, Cody whispered. The figures approached cautiously, their movements sharp and trained. They weren't just scavengers. They were killers. One of them, a tall man with a rifle slung over his shoulder, stepped forward. Come on out, he called, his voice calm. Almost amused. We know you're in there. Nobody moved. The man chuckled. Look, I get it. You're scared. But we're just here to talk. Jace didn't buy it. Neither did Hannah. The man continued. See, the way we see it, you've got 2 choices. 1, you come out nice and easy. We take what we want, you walk away breathing. He let the second option hang in the air. Hannah gritted her teeth. Dave's hands were shaking. Cody tightened his grip on his crowbar. Jace whispered, get ready. Then the man outside sighed. All right, then. He raised his hand. A signal. And the gunfire started. Nowhere left to hide. Windows shattered. Bullets tore through the walls. The group hit the floor, scrambling for cover as the raiders opened fire. Hannah crawled behind the counter, her heart hammering. Jace ducked behind an overturned table, gripping his shotgun. They're not letting us go. No kidding. Cody yelled. The farmhouse wasn't built for a firefight. The walls were thin. The cover was terrible. They were trapped. Then, a thump on the roof. Mia's eyes widened. They're coming from above. Nathan whimpered, curling into himself. We're dead. We're dead. Hannah refused to believe that. They weren't dead. Not yet. Jace gritted his teeth. We need a way out. Hannah's mind raced. Then she saw it. The cellar door. Half hidden beneath a rug. A way out. If they could reach it. But outside. The raiders were closing in. And if they got inside? It was over. The gunfire was relentless. Bullets punched through the thin wooden walls, spraying splinters through the air. The farmhouse was coming apart, offering little protection. Hannah's heart slammed in her chest. They were outgunned. Outnumbered. And the raiders weren't letting up. But they had one chance. The cellar, she shouted over the chaos, pointing to the trapdoor hidden beneath the rug. Jace's eyes locked onto it. He nodded. Everyone, move. Cody and Dave scrambled toward the door first, ripping the rug away. Mia grabbed Olivia's arm, dragging her toward it. Nathan hesitated, frozen in fear. Jace grabbed his collar. You want to die here? Move. Nathan snapped out of it and dove for the cellar door. A bullet tore through the table Jace was crouched behind, missing him by inches. We don't have time. Cody growled, yanking the door open. A dark stairwell yawned beneath them. Hannah ushered Olivia inside first, followed by Mia and Dave. Cody slid in next, gripping his crowbar. More gunfire. Jace covered their retreat, firing a shot through the broken window. A raider screamed outside. Then, the front door burst open. A raider charged inside, rifle raised. Jace fired first. The shotgun blast tore into the man's chest, sending him crashing to the ground. More figures rushed toward the doorway. Jace jumped down into the cellar, yanking the trapdoor shut just as bullets slammed into it. Darkness swallowed them. The tunnels below. They hit the ground hard, landing in dust and rotted wood. For a second, nobody moved. Above them, heavy boots pounded across the floor, searching. Mia clicked on a flashlight. The dim beam revealed the cellar was bigger than expected, lined with wooden crates, old shelves, and cobweb-covered furniture. A single tunnel entrance gaped at the far end. Jace's breathing was ragged. That led outside? I hope so, Mia muttered. Hannah didn't hesitate. Then let's go. The group hurried through the tunnel, moving as fast as they could. The walls were damp, the air musty. Roots dangled from the ceiling. Nathan shivered. What if this collapses? Jace shot him a glare. Then we dig our way out. They pressed forward, the tunnel sloping downward. The further they went, the more the gunfire above faded. But Hannah wasn't comforted. The raiders weren't stupid. If they found the trapdoor, they'd figure out where this tunnel led. And when they did, they'd be waiting. A dead end? After 10 minutes of winding through the darkness, the tunnel finally opened up. They emerged into a small cavern, barely large enough for them all to stand. Tree roots snaked through the dirt ceiling. But something was wrong. Jace cursed. There's no exit. A dead end. The tunnel stopped here. Nathan panicked. We're trapped. Shut up. Cody snapped. We'll find another way. Jace scanned the walls, breathing hard. There's got to be something. Mia's flashlight flickered over an old wooden ladder, leading up to a hatch in the ceiling. Hannah's heart pounded. That's it. Jace climbed up first, pushing against the hatch. It didn't budge. Locked. A thud echoed behind them. They all turned. Mia's light flashed across the tunnel entrance. And then they saw it. Shadows. Moving. Coming for them. The raiders had found the tunnel. And they were closing in. Jace slammed his shoulder into the hatch, gritting his teeth. Help me. Cody jumped up, ramming into it with him. Wood groaned. Nathan was hyperventilating, gripping his head. Dave froze, his eyes locked on the entrance. Olivia whimpered, clinging to Mia. Hannah grabbed her axe, planting herself between them and the tunnel. She could hear the raiders coming closer. One last push. Jace and Cody slammed into the hatch together. Crack. It snapped open. Jace didn't hesitate. Go! Mia shoved Olivia up first, then followed. Dave scrambled up next, pulling Nathan with him. Cody climbed after them. Jace turned back, shotgun raised. He caught a glimpse of the first raider charging down the tunnel, rifle raised. Boom. Jace fired. The raider dropped. Hannah was the last one up. As she grabbed Jace's hand, she heard the raiders shouting. They were almost there. Jace yanked her up just as bullets ripped through the ground beneath them. Then he kicked the hatch shut. The dark woods. They collapsed onto the ground, gasping for air. The hatch led into the woods, outside the farm. The trees stretched into the night, thick and twisting. No sign of the raiders. Not yet. Cody gripped his crowbar. We can't stop. Jace nodded. We keep moving. But Olivia was crying softly. Where do we go now? Mia exhaled. The town. Nathan wiped sweat from his face. You think it's still safe? Hannah glanced at Jace. They didn't have another option. Jace straightened, gripping his shotgun. We find out. They turned toward the trees. And ran. The forest swallowed them. Jace led the way, his shotgun clutched tight. The others followed, their footsteps muffled by the damp earth. Shadows twisted between the trees, their breath fogging in the cold night air. No one spoke. Behind them, the farmhouse was a dark silhouette, and the raiders were somewhere within it, searching, hunting. But they weren't safe yet. They had one final destination. The town. The last hope for survival. The silent streets. They emerged from the woods at the edge of town. Broken streetlights cast eerie shadows over the deserted streets. The small town had once been alive, shops with neon signs, diners with buzzing lights. Now? Nothing but darkness and decay. A few abandoned cars sat rusting in the middle of the road. Some buildings had burn marks, others had been looted clean. Mia gripped her pistol. Doesn't look promising. Cody squinted. Think anyone's still here? Jace scanned the rooftops. If there are survivors, they're hiding. Hannah's stomach twisted. And if the raiders get here first, they'll wipe out anyone left, Jace finished. Silence fell over the group. Then a noise broke it. A distant groan. Hannah turned sharply. At first, she thought it was the wind. Then she saw them. Zombies. Not just a few. Dozens. Their rotting figures shambled out from the side streets, drawn by the movement. Cody muttered, shit. Jace clenched his jaw. Move. Now. Nowhere left to run. They sprinted toward a two-story hardware store on the corner, its glass windows shattered. Jace kicked the door open, ushering everyone inside. The store smelled of dust and rusting metal. Empty shelves lined the walls. A few tools and supplies remained, untouched. Cody slammed the door shut behind them, wedging a metal rod between the handles. We need a plan, Mia panted, reloading her pistol. Nathan backed against the wall, shaking. We're trapped. Not yet, Jace muttered. He pointed to the roof access ladder at the back of the store. Up. Now. One by one, they climbed. Jace was the last up, yanking the ladder behind him. They reached the roof just as the undead horde swarmed the street below. Hundreds of them. A moving sea of decay. Hannah's pulse pounded in her ears. But that wasn't the worst part. In the distance, headlights appeared. Vehicles. The raiders had arrived. And now? They were sandwiched between the two. The final choice. Cody gripped the edge of the roof. We're screwed. Jace's mind raced. The raiders hadn't seen them yet, but they would soon. And the zombies. They weren't stopping. Mia peered over the ledge. We have one shot at this. Which is? Cody asked. She pointed toward the old fire station across the street. The ladder truck. Jace followed her gaze. An old fire engine sat outside the station, its extendable ladder still intact. If they could get to it, they could use it to escape over the rooftops. But first, they had to get past the zombies. And the raiders. The gamble. Jace didn't hesitate. We go now. They climbed down the fire escape, landing in the alley. Cody and Dave ran ahead, cutting through a side street toward the fire station. Jace and Hannah covered their rear, weapons ready. Mia and Olivia sprinted for the fire truck. Zombies turned toward them, groaning loudly. Then, a gunshot. The raiders had spotted them. Shouts echoed through the street. Survivors. Get him. Bullets ripped through the air. Jace dove behind a wrecked car, Hannah right beside him. Mia reached the fire truck, jumping into the cab. Come on, come on. She hot-wired the ignition, her fingers shaking. Nathan screamed as a zombie grabbed him. Dave swung a wrench, crushing its skull. Move! The engine roared to life. Mia hit the controls. And the ladder extended. Climb, she shouted. Cody scrambled up first, yanking Nathan behind him. Olivia followed. Jace covered their escape, firing his last shotgun shells at the raiders. Hannah helped Dave up before grabbing Jace's wrist. Now, Jace! The raiders charged. Jace jumped onto the ladder just as bullets slammed into the truck. Mia cranked the ladder toward the rooftops. They climbed. Just as the undead swarmed the fire truck. Just as the raiders arrived, firing wildly. Just as the chaos exploded beneath them. A city in flames. From the rooftop, they watched it all. The zombies overran the raiders, dragging them down into the horde. Gunfire turned into screams. Then silence. The group lay panting on the rooftop, bruised and exhausted. But alive. Jace exhaled. That was too close. Nathan curled into himself, shaking. They're all dead. Cody wiped blood from his face. Better them than us. Mia stared at the ruined city below. What now? Hannah glanced at the horizon. The sun was rising. They had survived the night. But the world was still broken. And the fight wasn't over. Jace pushed himself up. We keep moving. Where? Olivia whispered. Jace looked at her. Wherever we have to. They turned toward the rooftops ahead. And ran toward the unknown. The end.